I'm Kalia, and today I'm going to talk about a practical way to use the law of attraction. In the last episode, I talked about the dark side of the law of attraction and some of the experiences that I was going through that were really difficult for me in my own life. And the question always comes up, how did I attract this? Or why did I attract this? And I want to talk about the possibility that that whole question of why did I attract this isn't really helpful. Because what it ends up doing is making you feel ashamed or flawed in some way. And how is that helpful to helping you to become your best self? You really don't want to focus on that. And it's interesting, I was listening to Myron Golden, who's a virtual mentor of mine. I took his Make More Offers workshop, which I highly recommend to anybody. I'm going to put a link to it in the description below, because he's a real powerhouse and he comes from a Christian background. He used to be a pastor, and yet he's a very savvy businessman. He does very well in business. That's his business, is helping people to learn how to create wealth. And he does not use what we would think of as the law of attraction, but he talks about it in a way that I think is super interesting. I'd like to share that with you today to give you a different perspective on the law of attraction. Now, the way that Myron Golden presents it is that he starts with a fact. So in my previous situation, the fact was I had a tenant who informed me that she wasn't going to pay rent because she had been suffering with some illnesses and had a belief that I was the cause of her illness. Okay, we won't go into that, but that was her belief. And therefore, I owed her, instead of her owing me rent, I owed her a month's rent. And that was very frustrating. It was something I just wasn't in the mood to have to deal with, that I was forced to deal with. That was the fact, okay? The fact is my tenant is not paying rent. Now, Myron Golden talks about how there's two sides to a fact, just like there's two sides to everything. There's two sides to a piece of paper. There's two sides to a pancake, that there's two sides to everything. And that there's also two sides to a fact. There's a positive side and a negative side. So when we're considering the fact, we have to look at the two sides of it, meaning just because I have a situation that appears to be negative, there's another side to it. And when we focus on the positive side of a thing, the positive side of a fact, when we can align with a positive side of a fact, it puts us in a place of faith. We do more positive works as a result of it. So when we focus on a positive side of a fact, we have a positive belief. And from that positive belief, we take positive action and have a positive result. If we focus on the negative side of a fact, we go into fear and doubt. We have a negative belief, and we are likely going to be in a place of inaction or maybe reaction. So when you look at the law of attraction, if you're focusing on the positive side of a fact, you're going to attract more positive circumstances. And if you focus on the negative side of a fact, you're going to attract more negative circumstances, or you're going to be in a period of inaction. Like when we are depressed because something happened. Somebody broke up with their boyfriend and they're very depressed about it. They might just sit around and be depressed. And somebody that looks at the positive side of a fact, the boyfriend broke up with me, might decide, well, you know what? I'm going to get in the best shape ever. I'm just going to get in the best shape ever. And I'm going to get a gym membership and I'm going to start eating well. And they use that heartbreak as the motivation to take positive action in their life. And so as a result, they start going to the gym, they start getting in shape, they meet a new guy at the gym who's really awesome and start a new relationship. Now compare that to that version of themselves that just stays on the couch and binges on Ben and Jerry's and watches Netflix. That version is not going to be attracting anything particularly positive and may end up gaining weight and becoming even more out of shape. So it's more of a practical way of looking at it when we put a positive spin on things. Like you've probably heard everything happens for a reason. I used to just hate that term. Everything happens for a reason. It's like, yeah. And people still tell me that, even if I'm complaining about my current circumstances. Well, Kalia, there's a reason this is happening. It's like, yeah. Because, it's like, that's just encouragement to look on the bright side of things. So even talking about the positive and the negative side of the fact, going to the negative is easy. And that's what most people do. A fact is a fact. It's not positive or negative. It's the spin we put on it. We either put a positive spin on it or a negative spin on it. In my circumstance, that tenant was trouble from the beginning. It's good she's leaving. Be gone. And focus on getting my house back and what that's going to feel like to get the house back and make it a sanctuary again. So that's the positive side. Or I could just dwell in, ain't it terrible? And that's the easy way. That's what most people do. They dwell and they ain't it terrible. And when you focus on the negative thought in the head, it causes a feeling in the heart, whatever that feeling is, which causes us to do the action or the inaction. So the fact might be your boyfriend broke up with you or your girlfriend broke up with you. That could be the fact. The thought could be, as a result of that, I'm never going to have another boyfriend, or this is a horrible thing. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me. And the feeling would be, heartbreak. So the other way to look at it is, how can I take this fact and turn it into a positive? Because if I take this fact, no matter what it is, and I turn it into a positive, or I focus on the positive side of it or the possibilities, then I'm going to much more likely take positive action that will produce positive results in my life. The way that Myron explains it, it's not when he says, people in the law of attraction say, you create your reality. And he says, you don't create your reality. You create how you react to your reality or how you perceive your reality. And that feels so much more real to me, is that we don't necessarily create everything that happens to us. That can make us crazy to think that every circumstance in our life that we've created, and I know there's a lot out there that says we create every circumstance in our life. I mean, it's in the Secret and all those books that are out there on the law of attraction, that we create the car accident, we create the cancer, we create all of those horrible things that happen to us. Now, there could be some truth to that. You could be up all night not sleeping and then driving half unconscious the next day and get into a car accident, well, yeah, you could say I created that. I was too tired to be driving and I drove anyway. But if a drunk guy slams into you when you're out there just living your life, and you're in the hospital and you're in critical condition, and somebody walks in the room and says, "What did you do to create this?" That's horrifying and shaming. If you've just had your heart broken because your husband ran off with another woman and somebody says, "What did you do to create this?" Again, horrifying. It's not helpful. So I think it is better to look at your life from that you create how you respond to the circumstances of your life, but don't create the circumstances of your life. That's not helpful. Sometimes, yes, we do. Sometimes it's clear that we create the circumstances of our life. We create lying down on that sofa with the Ben and Jerry's night after night watching Netflix. That's our doing. That's how we've chosen to react to the fact that caused us to do that. So that is our responsibility. It's our responsibility. Either we're going to be in this place of apathy and non-action, or we're going to use our circumstances and take some kind of positive action, like going to the gym and getting in shape, or doing something very different with our life. And that's choice. We get to choose how we are going to interact with whatever it is that is happening in our life. And I think it's really important to understand that piece, because that gives you a sense of control. Like, I don't have any control over what my tenant decides to do or not do. I don't have control over her. I don't have control over her behavior. Now, I can visualize that she's gone. I can visualize a bubble of pink light around the whole situation. There's a lot of techniques that I can do that might put a positive spin on it, or it might not. I was in a lawsuit once, and I met a man that did phenomenal things in his life by putting a pink bubble of light around a situation or an area. And he was in war zones all over the world. And when he was in a particular war zone, it was usually relatively peaceful because he was doing this light technique, putting this pink bubble of light around it. And this was a warrior. This was a Navy SEAL. But he used this pink bubble of light. And I went up to him after his talk and I asked about my lawsuit that I was in. And I asked if I put the pink bubble of light around this lawsuit, what do you think would happen? And he said, "Oh, yes, do it. One of two things is going to happen. Either he's going to drop that lawsuit or something horrible is going to happen in his life." So what I did is I felt encouraged. So we were in a lawsuit for 4 years. And I talked to this man in the spring of the last year of the lawsuit. By the winter of that same year, the lawsuit was dropped. It was a relatively easy transition. So it happened exactly as this man said, that it's either going to get dropped or something is going to happen. So I was able to get out of it. Finally, after fighting this lawsuit, battling for all these years, I was finally able to get out of it. I learned putting that pink light around things is really helpful. In fact, I had to remember to do it in this last situation, just to put light around it, put that bubble of love or light, or however you want to look at it, around a situation. And that's like bringing positive energy to it, because we can go to two things. When somebody is doing something to us, we don't feel like it's fair, or we feel like it's abusive, then we can often get angry, and we can come from a place of negativity or hatred or fight or, resistance. But when you put that bubble of love around something, it changes the frequency of it. It changes our energy. It changed my energy because I wasn't mad at this man anymore for suing me. I wasn't negative or hateful towards him. I kind of felt sorry for him. So I just kept putting that love around it, putting that love around it, and it had a positive outcome. This is just some really simple ways to look at the law of attraction. I invite you to not ask yourself, why did I create this? Maybe, how did I contribute to this? Might be a better way to look at it. How did I contribute to this? Then you're not continually blaming and shaming and going into the negative with yourself. Self-love is really the way. It's always the way. So try to be gentle on yourself and really consider that there is two sides of every fact. And if you look at the facts from that perspective, you don't have to always go to the ain't it bad, ain't it awful place. You can say there's another side to this that could put me in a different headspace, in a different mindset. Okay, so thank you so much for being with me today. If you want to grab a copy of my Wealth Magnet Method free ebook, I am going to put the link in the description below, and you can learn how to attract wealth from that positive mindset. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.